Hey, what's going on, Stone Watchers? I literally just got back from watching Encanto, and as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to make a review for it. But instead of just simply staring into my computer camera and doing this, I just wanted to do like a quick one because, I just have like, while I wanted to talk about it, I just need to spit it like right now because, the memories are like boiling in my brain, like, yeah. So yeah, pretty much. I just wanted to do like a quick, like little analytical, video on the movie I just saw, Encanto. Encanto is another Disney animated film. In terms of animation, it's whatever. It's just like any other movie. It has, a budget of fucking Zeus's pubic hair, and of course I mean that, in the most flattery way possible. I mean, as your standard, art design has been going to the big eyes and the big noses and the really, overt expressions. But, it's what you would expect out of Disney, the animation. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's what you expect of it. The plot pretty much is about a family of magic users, all of them having quirks. I mean, uh, what they call them shits? Not quirks, but they might as well be. So yeah, they all have quirks. Yeah, fuck it. They all had quirks, and pretty much it just makes them all one note characters, but still, nevertheless, all these quirks, kind of all define them in certain way in this film. Uh, Pretty much this film had a message about how, simply having something doesn't make you any less important to a family and whatnot. And quite frankly, it's one of the few Disney films that actually legitimately like has a really different message as opposed to chase your dreams and don't let no one hold you down. Like it actually has like a really different message that, kind of changes up the whole typical formula. Like, how many Pixar and Disney films essentially have the same message? Chase your dream, do your thing, don't let people hold you down, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it has those aspects in there, but so many Disney films, like, has done that before. Like, Ratatouille, Moana, Coco, like, they literally all had that same message. And yeah, this film has those aspects, but more so, the main message is about, family and togetherness and how traits, yeah, that's what it was, traits, I think. Yeah, and pretty much how a trait shouldn't really define you, but more so your importance in the family and your role that you have to fill in that everyone else in the family has to fill in terms of the household. And the main character, Mary Bell, she doesn't really have one, kind of like My Hero Academia, but unlikely for My Hero Academia, the whole message of, making it on your own as who you are as a person, having faith in who you are as a person, as corny as that sound, isn't scrapped with the main character getting a trait. And pretty much the whole movie rocks with that one message, which I really did admire because it's a really good message that this movie has and whatnot. And quite frankly, has one of the most tragic backstories in the Disney film for a while. When we know that the grandmother, pretty much, yeah, the typical evil adult you always find in kids' movies, it's kind of the reason why they had magic powers because she used to live in a warring time for Colombia. I think that's where this movie takes place in, where, warlords and, government upheavals, not like the upheaval they did at the end of this film, which I'll get to narratively, government upheavals, in Colombia and whatnot. And pretty much Lily experienced her own husband dying. And pretty much she tapped into some magic and pretty much got rid of the oppressors, which explains why the village pretty much looks up to the magic family because pretty much they're kind of the heroes and, they're pretty much the reason why their little village and civilization, is safe and is up and running as it is, thanks to the grandmother using magic to defeat the oppressors, freeing the village, and pretty much being responsible for why it's in tip-top shape. Like, that's one of the most saddest parts in the film. And it also really illustrates how sometimes family tends to hold back family. Like you go out of your way to try to protect someone, and you think it's protecting them. but really the whole time it's just you just, keeping them down, holding them down with some of your strict policy. Yes, it's typical, fuck, adult figures and whatnot in the film, but it still also works in this favor as the way I described it. Like sometimes being overprotective, always holding someone's hand tends to, hold people back. It tends to, it seems more harsh and cruel and unusual than, opposed to protecting them. And that's pretty much what the main character of this whole movie is. She's constantly being held back by her abuela, excuse me. But I don't really know Espanol. Obviously, English is my first and only language. But in the movie they kept saying abuela, and I think Colombia, that's really how they say it. In other countries they say abuelita. Like Spanish, even the language itself, Spanish varies upon countries. Like local, I'm pretty sure that's Mexican exclusive and whatnot. I could be wrong now, but yeah. Anyway, enough with the whole little language rant going on that I might be totally inaccurate of. Y'all can correct me in the comment section down below if YouTube allows me to make it acceptable with their bent ass and twisted rules. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it pretty much also paints that, yeah, it's pretty much fuck, older adult figures thing, but it's also kind of illustrates how when you constantly hold someone's hand, it kind of comes off as you not letting them learn for themselves. And although, yeah, Mary Bell was kind of vaguely responsible for, destroying the house, almost killing her whole family, and, almost ruining the whole village because she tried to more or less see into the mirror that pretty much was responsible for giving everyone in the family their magical traits and whatnot. Like Lucia, who's become really controversial lately, the strong one, she's really, strong apparently. She's a fucking brick house. And slowly in the movie, because, Maribel was tampering with the little green mirror that was the source of her powers to see into it and whatnot, she started to become weaker. And a lot of all the magical users in the family also started to feel effects of it. There was some real actual suspense and drama and actually like consequences. Again, for the ending to upheave it, but I'll get there when I get there. And it's one of the few things I really didn't like about this movie, as well as some other corporate related things and fandom and all that. We'll get there when we get there in this little quickie review I'm doing right now. Pretty much one of the characters that kind of, spawned the whole the grandmother's, paranoia. The reason why she pretty much wants everything to be perfect is because of one character who's the best character, Bruno, who quite frankly should have been in the movie more due to his pivotal role. His trait, allowed him to see into the future, and pretty much he was looking in too hard, and the grandmother kind of feared that his power was going to pretty much bring ruin to him because he was conjuring up, like bad, events that was going to happen in the future and whatnot. And essentially, he ran away. Literally, he vacated himself in the crevices of the house, pretty much being abandoned by the family. His own little, cage. So, of course, it'll be kind of, bonkers, despite this nigga had, like, perfect teeth and, he didn't have a full beard. I mean, he probably stank. He looked at it, he was filthy, but no full beard, perfect teeth. He was crazy, but, like, you can't have it both, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, pretty much Bruno, the best character, like the funniest one, who's pretty much kind of plays a pivotal role in the whole, them losing their magic powers and pretty much being one of the bases of the whole conflict of the film, aside from Maribel herself and even the grandmother kind of being the source of how it all happened. He's the pivotal, he serves as one of the pivotal. Yeah, I'm switching arms. This shit just keep getting sore, bro. It's some good workout though, man. Just been chucking down fucking bangs, workout and shit. So like, yeah. But nah, seriously, yeah, he was a pivotal in the narrative, but he was rarely in the film, and just like all the other family members, he was just reduced to just being defined by just his power for, cheap comedy relief. Oh yeah, that's a perfect shot. Get that little fire thing out the way. But yeah, it's a perfect shot. It's a blank wall. Yeah. I'm finally shot it, longitude, you know what I'm saying? I'm using geographical fucking terms, but you get the picture. Let's see, we can block with my head. Need some headroom now. Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. This whole time fucking adjusting while I'm doing the review. But yeah, anyway, what were you gonna do? But anyway, yeah, Bruno being a pivotal character in the narrative was really not in the story in itself, and again was kind of just reduced to most of the other family members in the story just being, simply defined by his superpower, and pushed aside just like anyone else. I mean, the sister, the older sister, the Mary Bell, the girl with the flower powers, the girl with the flower powers, she also more or less played up for like catharsis, like a catharsis in the film, where the whole film she was shown to be a stuck-up bitch, but really it's because she had to live up to the expectations her grandmother, put on her. She's kind of like it's like Azula and Zuko, the perfect child and the imperfect child. They kind of played off with her and Maribel, the flower sister, and Maribel. Same thing with Zuko and Azula. But really, the whole time, the flower sister, she just, more or less, she had to more or less put a facade on, just to impress her family. And pretty much with her unnecessary song number, just like this whole film is set with unnecessary song numbers. I mean, they're not bad. I mean, they're standard vocal, I want more, or I'm happy, type of songs. But really, this film really did not need any singing numbers. Music was fine, but it really didn't need any of these numbers in it. Like, if they just told this, it just feels like padding, pretty much. It's like almost a 2-hour movie, and most of the songs just feel like padding, and they could have just told the story straight. But of course, have like, your animation and whatnot, in the background, but the music itself was so unnecessary, and it just almost, it literally does turn into like exposition for pretty much most of the really underdeveloped characters who serve as one-off gags in the movie anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing in the music department. Like, you could literally cut it out, and the film actually would not only be shorter, but honestly would get to a point and not just feel like needless padding. So yeah, there's also that. So yeah, pretty much the message is there. I'm finally get to the ending of it, because I pretty much said my piece about everything else. I mean, yeah, of course, in Disney style, the house breaks down, the whole village comes and builds it because they looked after them. Everyone gets a happy ending, despite, the circumstances that literally happened. The fact they all could have been killed because one girl was meddling. Yeah, granted, it was for the better, for the grandmother to finally, owe up to, her trauma and whatnot. But still, nevertheless, she kind of almost literally caused all their deaths due to her meddling. And she didn't get rightfully punished. Although it was for a right cause, she still, like, it's kind of the reason for most of the conflict in the film to begin with. And, simply they just pinned everything on Bruno because he could look into the future. And all he simply just did was just look into it and didn't really do anything per se. But yeah. So yeah, for the ending is where the message really gets upheaved with me. Yeah, it's your standard, a gift. Yeah, not a trait, it's a gift. It's a gift, it's a gift, it's a gift. But fuck it, you can literally call it, you can literally dub the gifts in the story of anything, Shikai, breath. What do they call that shit off of Naruto? The inherited powers they have. It's Kenkai Genkai. Like you can literally dub the gifts with that, and none's the wisest. Like yeah, Kenkai Genkai, Shikai, breath, semblance, bending. You can literally dub it with that, and none the wisest. So the gifts do matter, but they don't matter because like they more or less serve just as one-offs. And yeah, you know the reason why the Abuelita, the Abuela, I keep saying that the grandmother character, you know, did what she did in the first place, and why she wanted to keep Mirabelle from the mirror and fucking up the family essentially, in her eyes apparently. And oh yeah, and also has a good message about how more or less how people never feel like they can amount to shit, like with family, with anything. And you know, we all been there before, but most importantly, it's best that you always get yourself out of that kind of mindset. Like you go down that rabbit hole, like you know, where you feel like you're unneeded, but you know, you just like I said in my nihilist video, nihilism isn't about, you know, welling in the darkness and being mopey and sad and depressed all the time. It's more so about how you go through there. It makes you a stronger person, and you still push forward to greener pastures. And pretty much that's where the movie kind of upheaves that whole concept, with all of them at one point losing their powers because of the mirror breaking, and you know the whole house being enchanted. I think that's what Encanto means, enchanted. Yeah, the whole building pretty much caving in and whatnot. And they all lost their powers. And, you know, this could have been a good message how, and I mean, the movie said it itself with the last music number, how, you know, the gifts don't define us, we define ourselves. And that could have been a really good message this movie left off. But no, instead it had to be your stereotypical good ending with them getting their powers back and taking a big family picture with Bruno being in there. It almost felt like there was really no real consequences from literally anything that happened. And that literally is the one thing that upheaved the movie for me. The ending. Like it could have like really went off the same way like Dragon Ball GT. Like, yes, I know, terrible spin-off of Dragon Ball Z, but literally Encanto could have literally went that way. But hear me out on it. The ending of Dragon Ball GT with, you know, Shenron taking Goku away, as well as the Dragon Balls, you know, represented how pretty much you can't simply just wish away, you know, bad shit that happens to you. And, you know, you got to be a man about it and, you know, face those shortcomings by yourself without the need of, you know, some orbs wishing them off. And that's essentially what Encanto could have been with them losing their powers. But instead, they just get their powers back. And it's just a jolly, gay old time at the end. It's almost like literally everything that happened, all the conflict in the movie literally meant nothing in the long run. I mean, they get their house back and their powers, and they get a new family member, and the grandmother more or less, you know, owes up to being a strict bitch, and the flower girl also stops being a stuck-up bitch. But, and you know, the whole message of this movie is like, you know, togetherness. But I just feel like them getting their powers back instead of just dealing with all their problems, you know, by themselves with their own sheer will and capabilities. I feel like them getting their powers back and all that just almost undermines the whole message. It upheaves the whole message of that, and, you know, dealing with shit on your own, and how powers and magic and whatnot doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't make you special because you already are as a person. And that's just my only little thing I have for that. Like little, it kind of almost did ruin it for me if, you know, God. if it wasn't for just overall the film itself just being, you know, exceptional for the most part. Yeah, I know there's been a fan base out recently, you know, some about, you know, like LGBTQ, you know, politics and stuff going into this, and people essentially making their own headcanons and whatnot. And what I gotta say to it is, I don't really care enough. I like this movie for what it is. I don't want to dwell more into it. It's fine how it is. There's no reason for people to overthink it. It got its message, although it upheaves it at the end, and that's what's important. Just like how Disney essentially has a new franchise they can use, because apparently something about Encanto getting a sequel and a TV show, and like there's no need for it. Like the film, it had its story and it stalled it. There's really no need to, rag on it more. Like it did its job. It had its laughs, although I feel like the comedy aspect really kind of almost did rear off from the severity of the whole conflict of the film at times. But for the most part, it did its thing and it moved on. It was a passion project. It was made to, represent Latino and Colombian, representation. Like, yeah, white Colombians and Afro Colombians and, all that stuff going on in the film. And that's was kind of what was important. It's just so it was made by, someone else. It was someone else's story on a more, racial and ethnical stance. And it got its message out. It did its thing. And I feel like there's no need to just milk it out. But, Disney is all about milking their series. And, yeah. Well, that's just my piece on it and whatnot. That's all. Like, I just saw it and I just had to, pull what was on my mind on it. I mean, it was fine. It was great. But I feel like it did upheave its message just a bit. That's all, man. Like and subscribe. You already know the drill.